Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another magnificent, wonderful episode of MPJ, Musical People and Journeys. And tonight we are praying at the altar of ScreaMachine and their album, which we reviewed recently, called Church of the Scream. And I'm delighted to welcome Francesco Bucci. Hello, Francesco.
Hi.
Hello, nice spelling. Thank you for having ScreaMachine here. Thank you for opening wide the gates of the Church of the Scream.
Yay!
I love that.
That's amazing, amazing. So, anyway, before we were talking, we were saying that you have another neighbour with a very large church because you are you are hailing from Rome, Italiano,
Yes.
and if you looked out
Yes.
your window, you could see another church. Is that right?
Yes, I can't see that church straight because there is a building, but there is the St. Peter Dome outside. I think 1 kilometer in that direction. So, I am playing metal near the Pope. I think it's very metal.
As I said to you off air, I know which church I would want to go to. So, right, I'm going to break with tradition here. I'm going to break, and I'm going to allow Trish, who normally has to wait very patiently for me to allow her to ask a question. Trish,
Yes.
go. You can start, Trish. You can get your.
Trish,
I'm going to give you
I'm
two
honoured.
questions in, and then you can jump in later as well.
Okie
I'm ready.
dokie. Okay. So, my first question is, how did you come up with the name for your band?
The name? Yes, the name. Okay, it was my idea. This band was born in a real simple and honest way. It was my will to pay the tribute to the music that I was grew to. Because I'm not a young guy, as you can see. I have a career in metal since 25 years. I have been 25 years in a band called Stormlord, which play extreme epic metal. So we made 6 albums and a lot of touring and stuff like that, and I was very active in the extreme metal scene. But since I was a child, I was raised on classic heavy metal. The first album I ever heard was Kill 'Em All, and then it was all about Saxon, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Savatage, and stuff like that. And of course, I'm very fascinated to the extreme metal too. But it was very important for me to produce something that could be near to the things, the music, the sound that I love most in heavy metal. So I was thinking, when I have few songs, I was thinking about a moniker, a name that could warn the listener, that could explain to the listener what kind of music you can hear. And I think ScreaMachine was perfect, because Machine also made on metal, and Scream, it's loud heavy metal music, the music that we play. So very easy. We were making a brainstorm with all the other guys, but I come with this idea. They were pleased. So I think it works. It's ScreaMachine. It's perfect.
And so, what is the story of how the band came together and the band members joined?
Yeah, as I told you, the first idea was mine. I wanted to play classic heavy metal, and I think it's a kind of music that is not represented anymore, because it's like being back to the roots, but without sounding vintage. Taking inspiration from that kind of sound from the 80s, taking to the modern time. And right now, every band needs a lot of adjective to describe themselves. Extreme, pure, symphonic, techno, metal, and stuff like that. I wanted to play heavy metal like back in the days, and I'm lucky because here in Rome, during all this year, I knew I met a lot of friends that are really talented and skilled music player. So, I made some call, and luckily for me, there was a lot of people interested in bringing back the classic heavy metal, the traditional heavy metal. So, it was quite easy for me to find the right guys. And after it, the idea was born in 2017. And after 2 albums and some shows shared together, I have to say that I was really lucky, because this bunch of, this motley crew, this bunch of crazy guys really become a strong band that we respect so much. So it was born that way.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because I think there is a lot of bands trying to be to bring back heavy metal. Whether they do it very well is another matter. And it's like that 80s kind of cluster. There's not enough bands, I think, out there that are coming with that more heavier kind of vibe to it, which is where you've come across. Do you think, though, the Italian rock scene seems to? I mean, it's always been there, but obviously with the advent and popularity of Maneskin, do you think the Italian rock scene is now that's helped the spotlight go more onto Italian bands such as yourself? I mean, I know they're a different sort of rock band to you, but obviously that Italian kind of. It just seems to me that way. Is that the case? How do you feel about that from within Italy then?
Well, of course, it was pretty impressive because we used to know Maneskin before the Eurovision win, and so they become so huge, and it was impressive. But I have to say, I like them. Most of the people here in Italy don't like them, but
really?
it's an Italian way. You know, when you have success, you have to die. You have to remain underground. I really like them, and I knew them since the beginning, and I was so impressed on how good they become because they were not so good musician in the beginning. I mean, the roots were all there, but they were not so good. And in about 1 year, they changed from this to this. So I respect that. And I think they are cool. I like the rock, of course. I prefer, young guys listen to Maneskin better than listen to, other kind of music, more flat. But I don't think it will impact very much the rock scene because Maneskin is much more one of a kind. They feel the spot that was missing in the foreign music. That rock, that kind of rock sound. That take inspiration from Red Hot Chili Peppers, from Rage Against the Machine, a bit from Led Zeppelin. It was missing, if you see, in the mainstream music scene. And they were good enough to feel it. But I don't think this will take, it will be so good for Italy because they could came from every country. Maybe they come from Italy and it was good because they're seen also as a fashion band. And I know that Italiano, it's always good. It's something, fascinating. The change for the Italian metal scene was more when bands like Rhapsody, now Rhapsody of Fire, or Lacuna Coil came on the scene. Because the hard rock metal scene in Italy has always been there. We had very good bands like Bulldozer, like Dead Assess, like Vanadium, people like that. But the change, of the scene was when Lacuna Coil and Rhapsody came and put Italian metal scene on the map. And right now we have a lot of bands, like Hellbent King, La Flash God Apocalypse, a lot of bands that are doing headliner tour all around the world. They're making a lot of albums. So the Italian scene is now on the map, but because of the band that I said before.
So it's kind of interesting. But the whole part of where we've come from is evolving people's journeys from when they first started right through to where we're at today. And we liken ourselves of bringing a lot of new bands out there, and we review something about 16 albums a month because we want to, we want people to kind of learn about the smaller bands and the emerging bands such as yourself. So, but I have to say it's very unusual for a bassist such as yourself to be the head of the kind of focal part of the group. So is it something that because you said you were in the extreme metal band Stormlord. Now, how did it all start for you though? When you were growing up, what was it in your DNA? Did your parents were in a band? Were they? How did you start? How did you start? When you were growing up as a kid, then becoming and why the bass guitar?
Well, no, my family has no musical tradition apart for my grandfather that was really into classical music. I mean, we were listening in my house music, but maybe Beatles or stuff like that, or even classical music, but there was not such this love for rock. As for the instruments I play, I think I'm one of the few bass players that actually started playing bass. Okay, yeah. So I'm not a guitar player who changed the instruments, even if now I'm able to play guitar, especially for songwriting. for songwriting duty, because I have to say that playing, especially if you have to write a rock or a metal song on the guitar, it's easier, even if I also write on the bass. But the reason is simple. When I was a young guy, I was still very confused, even about the instruments, because right now we are all very skilled. We know a lot. I'm in love, with sound engineering, so I like also to study the music and stuff like that. But when I was a young guy, I didn't know what I was listening. I just hear this music. So I wasn't focusing that much also on bass. So it comes the first album, like I said before. It was Kill 'Em All, and at a certain point of Kill 'Em All, there is this strange and amazing sound, that I wasn't able to recognize it. It was Anesthesia pulling it, the bass solo of Cliff Burton. They say, I want to play this kind of bass. And because this is bass and I love it. And I was wrong, because this was distorted bass, which is very different from normal bass. But this was enough for me to start. And then I was able to recognize, I was already listening to Beatles or to Queen or to Led Zeppelin, so I knew that this pulse was good. But then I started to play bass, and it was all. I understood that was my way, and I also understood that it was cool because a lot of band was missing the bass player. So for me, it was really easy here in Rome to find bands for the first experience.
You must be very, very in demand. You've got a bass player. So,
yeah. It's just like being a drummer. Maybe when you're a drummer, you're really lucky. But at least I do not have to build drums every time that I have a show. So, we are filled with guitar players there.
Fantastic. Okay, and was it always Rome? Are you born and bred from Rome, or is that something that came later? Are you a Roman then?
I'm a Roman. Yes. I lived there. I was born there. My roots are in another region of Italy. It's called Molise, a very small region. But I was born in Rome. And to answer the question, it was telling me, yes, it was always in my DNA to be a songwriter. And I don't want to say the leader, but the one who organized the band. Yes, it's something that I think I do in a good way. It comes to me naturally. Of course, all the guys from ScreaMachine, especially Paolo, that giving me a huge hand, I have to say. But yes, I think it's in my DNA. Like Lemmy, like Steve Harris, like Kronos.
So Stormlord then, was Stormlord your first band, or had you started with other smaller bands and then before you went to Stormlord, or?
No. I started with some smaller bands. I was playing death metal, I was playing thrash metal, I was playing power and speed metal. Also outside, I was playing hard rock, even air metal. I have an insane passion for 80s hair metal.
For what metal? Sorry.
80s hair metal.
Oh,
80s hair metal.
Oh my God. You too.
I really like it. I love Pretty Boy Floyd, I love Cinderella and stuff like that. So I have to say, I really like every side of metal. I'm old enough to have explored, from the, maybe also from Aware, from Journey and stuff like that, to raw black metal. I always find some bands that I like it.
Yeah, I think there's elements, isn't there? I personally can't abide screamo and growler, as I call them, because I like to hear a voice, I like to hear the lyrics, I like But when you go to screamo, for example, the musicianship, the guitar playing, and the melodies are just like the heavy rock is fantastic, but then as soon as they open their mouth and start to scream, I just turn off. So Stormlord then became what you call extreme metal. Was that screamo? Was that, as I called it? Was that screaming?
No, it was.
So what was it? Yeah, what was extreme metal for you?
It was the Stormlord band was symphonic black metal. I would say something like Dimmu Borgir, Cradle Field, okay, something like that. Now, as for the screaming style, it's all about what you are used, because of course, for me, the extreme metal, it finds melody in another place. So maybe it's not in the vocals because it's more rhythmic, but it's more in the riff. That's why I think I have a particular style when I write heavy metal, because my riffs are more very structured. The songs that I wrote for ScreaMachine, you can recognize from the song that Paolo wrote, for example, because it's more a hit maker. It's a single maker. It's more, simple riff, very good melody, and stuff like that. I'm more into complex riffing because it's from where I came from, and also because I'm I really love Metallica. I really love the style of James Hetfield. Not about the thrash metal, but the way he writes music. So I'm more in that direction.
So, obviously, child of the 80s, just like myself and Trish there. I mean, you liken your music on your website to you start off with Judas Priest and Metallica. Now, I was very lucky in the 80s. I saw Judas Priest twice in a week at some point. One in England, went back home to Wales, watched them in Wales. They were amazing. Can you remember what was your? There wasn't the best gig that I saw in the 80s. That still belongs to Dave Lee Roth when he was touring with Steve Vai. What was the highlight of the 80s then for you? Did you see many bands in the 80s, or were you? Because you don't look that old. You don't look like you were old enough to be going.
I haven't seen any band in the 80s. I'm 44. So my first album, my first gig was, I think, in 92, 93, maybe. I started to see concert from there because I was too little. But I became already listening music from the 80s, because the hair metal wave was still strong, the bands like Bon Jovi. When I started listening, there was this rising extreme metal scene, a lot of good death and black metal bands. There was, of course, Pantera on the rise, but there was also the long wave of 80s metal, because Bon Jovi was becoming huge mainstream act, but they were still, keeping a lot of the of that elements. And then I have a really good friend of mine, the first drummer I playing with. He was really crazy about the glam metal or the glam metal scene. So I was playing with him in a cover band. We were playing, all the hits of Cinderella, or maybe Pretty Boy Floyd, Poison, Motley Crue, of course. And in another band, I was playing Manowar. That was cool. And Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. So it was growing on me. I was never, something like, if you're not into true metal, you're not my friend. I like music. I think there is good music and bad music. You can find a lot of very bad music also in, true heavy metal, and a lot of good music outside metal.
Manowar were the early pace setters for power metal, and they were just amazing. So yeah, because what was happening back in the early 80s is that the bands like Whitesnake and stuff were still around, but they were just on the way. They'd come off the peak, and there wasn't really any new bands kind of coming through in that glam metal scene, because then it shifted through to more kind of that new metal scene, didn't it? And I think you started catching the tail end of it. I mean, they were still around. I mean, I watched Bon Jovi a few times in the 90s as well. But so I'm really intrigued as to when did you go, because you said with Stormlord you did like 6 albums. So when did that turn for you then? When did you join Stormlord, and when did that become a thing?
In 1998.
Okay.
And I left the band the last November in 2022. It was so after 25 years of duty. Right now I'm really focusing on ScreaMachine. So that's why I'm really proud of this second album that was just released, and I think there was a lot of good feedback, so I think I could be happy.
Oh, absolutely! No, absolutely. It's just I just love to talk about the journey from obviously where you went there, and I love the fact that you've obviously with Stormlord, where you basically you achieved, by the sound of it, you achieved everything you wanted to achieve, and then it was going back going back to your very, very roots of what your real kind of passion was, and I love that. I think that is absolutely amazing.
Well, yes, it was not something I am doing this or I'm doing that. Simply, it was about finding the will to do that, you know, because of course when you're in a band, a tour and stuff like that, and then you have your normal life, your work, your family, the problem it's always the time, never the passion. But in that period, I was really, I felt the need to add to my musical career, I would say, this chapter about heavy metal. Once again, I want to say it was very important for me not to have a band that was, sounding just vintage or just like a cosplay. For me, it was important to start from this passion, but with the style and the sound of the modern times. Because, a lot of very good albums were released in the 80s. So there's no need, to act like if we live in the 80s. And I see also in the metal scene, there are a lot of very good bands that they are producing their album like it was, the Soundhouse tapes, like in 81, or they are really trying to play like, for example, the production or the songwriting was stopped in the 80s. I do not agree with that. It's not my cup of tea. I, of course, really like to play and to listen to my influences, but I also want to give something more. I really hope that ScreaMachine could sound, something old and something new at the same time.
And are you following up on a tour then? You're going to be going on tour with the album?
Yes, of course we are. We already played the first, date, first show in Rome a few weeks ago, and we are actually planning some dates here in Italy for the autumn, from September on, from October on, I would say, and then we'll try also to play, of course, in the foreign country. Right now, it's not really easy because you see a lot of very huge big band are canceling their show here in Europe. It's, the cost is increasing and the promoters are very scared on betting on a band, especially if it's a young band like us. But we will try to do. I have some contacts, so for sure we are going to play a lot in Italy. Then we see.
Trish, you can come back in.
Hi.
I've been really good to you tonight.
You have. Thank you so much. Okay. What's the best show or tour you've ever played, and why was it so special to you?
I ever played, you mean ScreaMachine?
Or your other band? If there was one that stood out to you.
Well, of course, in my career, we had some amazing shows, at festival like the Gods of Metal, for example. Played with band like Motorhead, or
Wow.
sharing the backstage with Twisted Sister was amazing.
Oh.
But yes,
Nice.
Or for example, I've played in Tunis, in Africa. Or in Canada. All these memories are cool, but I would also say the first date with ScreaMachine was in Bari. Bari, it's a city in the south of Italy, and I was really in Puglia. I really didn't know what to expect. It was my first experience with this band, and the crowd was, so hot. They were really not aware of what ScreaMachine is, because we were the debut album was released in just few days, but they were, the response was impressive, and that was really in my heart, because I say, okay, it's a new start, I really like it, and I'm playing this kind of music, and now it's on the stage, the people it's enjoying, so it's always cool, when there is this interaction. I was pretty used to have the attention of the crowd with Stormlord, because of course we had a long career and we were lucky enough to have a huge fan base. But when you start once again with a new band, it's always difficult. You are scared because you say, maybe I'm not going to find this interaction with the crowd. And when you see that it's there, you are very, very happy about that.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. Carry on, Trish.
Okay, my final question, and I'm going to ask this one before Nigel nicks it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? What is your favourite song on the Church of Scream album?
Well, I have to say that I'm really proud. I mean, that's you give me a good chance to say. I think I was I seen the ScreaMachine versus Metal Church video of your podcast, and I was really interested in your critics, and I think they were all on point. But there is just one critic. I mean that. Hey, hello there.
Oh, that's Nigel's daughter.
I think they were really on point. I know that we were too loud for you, Trish, but then you changed your mind.
I went back, though. Do you know what? The best piece of advice Simon, who's also on the podcast, gave me, because I do tend to listen to the albums at work. And so, yeah, you get interrupted, you get distractions. So now I also then give them a second listen when I'm walking the dogs away from it all. And then, yeah, I actually enjoyed the album even more.
All the critics were on point. There's just one which I really disagree. I think it was not you too. Another one say that all the songs maybe sound a bit the same. Okay, this is not true. Absolutely, you can't say that. This was because of a fast listen. Because you could say the songs are good or bad. I do agree with that. But they absolutely do not similar. So that's why when I have to, of course, the style is heavy metal. So they are not reggae song or not hip hop song. But when you ask me about my favorite song, it depends. Because, for example, we have the most heavier song, like Church of the Scream or Best Case Scenario. The most epic song, like, what's the name? Flag of Damnation and the Epic of Defeat. We have the speed song, the classic heavy metal song, like the Crimson Legacy or Revenge Walk. And even on a hard rock song, like the Night Asylum. So,
that's my favorite.
Yeah, right now I'm really enjoying Night Asylum, for example. And then, of course, I love the last song, the Epic of Defeat, because it's our suite. And it has also a guest, which is a close friend of mine, which is Davide Damna Moras, the singer of Elven King. So that song, it's really special to me. But I can change. Maybe tomorrow I will like Church of the Scream more.
Yeah.
I think the Crimson, the first two songs are good. I think I think because my brother was Paul was very critical, was really praising your stuff. I understood, like for me, for example, when I say repetitious, I don't mean in terms of like there is obviously a lot of nuances in each of the tracks, and I get that. But I'm a sucker for a ballad and for it to be slowed right down. And there was none of that. I mean, I think I give you the same rating as I give the Metallica album, because if you love Metallica, their latest album, the 72 Seasons or whatever it was just like. It was similar because it was that same tempo, but obviously with different variations in the tune, etc. as well. And I think that for me, and we do say our ratings are for our listening pleasure, and for me, a perfect album is something that can hit me and smack me in the face, and then come and give me a hug on the next song, and that's kind of where I kind of like, but. I absolutely loved the sound. I mean, why wouldn't I? It was very classic, and I agree with you. I think that I think you're definitely hitting that heavy rock with that more modern vibe, and I can't wait because I know Judas Priest are bringing out a new album, aren't they? It's either next month or the month after, and it'd be interesting to see where they come from, because. I think some of these bands kind of just rest on their laurels. But I mean, we did Tigers of Pantang, and then we just interviewed them, and their album was a real surprise because Anthony was saying it's probably the best thing they've done in about 15-20 years, and there's lots of different tempos and variations to it. So I think of your next album, could you hit me with that with a bit of a ballad as well?
You want a ballad? That's right. Well, I think that. And I do agree with you because I also like the albums, that where every song has a nuance, every song has his charisma, and I think this album has it. It means a ballad, that's right, but we have, fast songs, slow songs. If you want something similar to a ballad, you have to check our EP Borderline, because there is our single, the single of the first album was called The Metal Monster. There is the acoustic version of that singer. So it could be interesting for you. It has a strange flamenco feeling, but maybe it's not a ballad, but it's close enough.
And I think you're going to develop and grow as a band, but I think the bases are there for something very special to come. I can't wait for your next album. So which is obviously probably going to be about 2 years' time, but usually that's the cycle of albums, isn't it? How do you go about? I mean, I always ask this question, but just I'd like to do a little survey really about how people write their music. Do you write the lyrics and then the music, or do you write the lyrics and then the lyrics?
Okay, our singer is in charge for writing the lyrics, and he is really, really good at that. And he's also the one who writes most of the vocal melody. For me, usually I start from a riff, from guitar, or maybe from a melody that I have in my mind that could be maybe a lead or stuff like that. Sometimes it also comes with vocal melodies, but mostly it's about Valerio. So I start with a riff, and I start to understand what I want to express. The song has to talk to me and to say what kind of song I am. And then I start to record by myself a demo, because every one of us it's able to work with computer and to record maybe a demo of the song. And usually I send to the other guys, especially to Valerio, the singer, because then he start to record back some vocal lines to say, okay, do you think it's good, it's in the mood of the song? Or maybe if it's not in the mood, he inspired me to change the song. It also could happen that way, because maybe he find something that I was not thinking about, and then it's so good that I say, okay, let's keep it that way, and maybe I change part of the song or stuff like that. And this was very useful for us, because most of that album was composed during the pandemic. So here in Italy, everything was locked. We were not able to meet for a lot of months. So the songwriting for us was going on, because we were exchanging all idea, through the internet. And to be honest, I also had a really creative boost in that period. So I was able to exchange, arrangement of song we had the other guys. But anyway, mostly it starts from a riff or from a single idea.
So another survey question, which I'm asking everybody. I mean, and particularly as we're in Italy, and particularly as it's Maneskin. Now, Maneskin were on both Italian X Factor, then Eurovision. Would you, if you had the opportunity, and bearing in mind that Steel Panther have just been on America's Got Talent and did really, really well, just like they absolutely.
Yes, I've seen.
Would Church of the Scream take to the stage either on something like Eurovision or Italian's Got Talent?
Yes, I'm ready, man. The bigger the stage, the happier.
Get on! He said yes! He said yes!
No problem. No problem for me. Even I could even play in Sanremo, Festival of Sanremo. Here in Italy, it's a huge thing. It's, I think, one of the biggest pop music festival in Rome.
Oh, wow.
In Italy. I never had this problem in where you play. Just give me a stage, I'll put the volume to 11, I'll play. So I really hope the crowd will enjoy, but that's no problem. By the way, I've seen the Steel Panther, on YouTube on American Got Talent. It was hilarious.
Oh, it was fantastic. Absolutely
brilliant.
Brilliant.
It was brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. And bizarrely, the first time I asked the band that question, it turns out that this chap had been on Britain's Got Talent like about 15 years ago with some weird band. It was really bizarre, really bizarre question. So, do you hope that one day you plan to bring your brilliant music to the United Kingdom?
Oh, of course. Of course.
The home of British rock. The home of rock.
Yeah. It would be, of course, really good. As my goal right now is to take ScreaMachine outside Italy if it's possible. So why not? Of course, Germany, France, all these countries I visited. Yes, my remorse, I regret that I never played in UK. I mean, I was able to play in Africa too, as I told you, or in the US, but never in Canada, but never in UK. For one, I don't know why, but I really hope. Right now, of course, it's not very easy because of the cost. But I mean, after this interview, I'm sure that a lot of English or British promoter will be eager to write to me.
We'll put it out there for you.
So
Absolutely
just check our social. Write on our social. We are ready. We are a rock and roll band. So just give us a beer. and maybe, buy us a plane ticket and we're ready.
Hey, well, you never know, do you? Never know who's watching. That'll be the main thing. So,
Yeah.
So Trish, any final questions from you before we say arrivederci?
No, I've had my time.
You've had your
Trish, it's
time.
happy like that, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it is time to say arrivederci. Have I said that right?
Yeah.
Arrivederci.
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 There we go.
Arrivederci is perfect. Yes.
And I hope one day we can see you playing to 40,000 people at the Colosseum in Rome.
Me too.
That would be amazing. But Francesco,
Or maybe Buckingham Palace, yes.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
don't.
on the roof.
Don't.
Like Brian May.
Yeah, absolutely. Francesco, it has been an absolute
Yes.
pleasure. Thank you very much
Me
for
too.
joining us
Thank you
tonight.
so much.
And
Thank you, guys.
Good luck. We hope that the album continues to be a success. And please keep liking our posts and say well done to the rest of the band for us and say rock
Sure.
on. That'll be amazing. So
Sure. Thank you very much, guys.
bye,
Thank
bye,
you.
bye.
Bye.
Keep on rocking
Ciao.
out there, everybody. Goodbye for now.
Sure.